Last Saturday we made a video called How to Sell Out Your Debut Gig. We've had a few questions on that video, so I'm going to take this video to answer those questions. If you haven't seen last Saturday's video, I will link it up there because ideally you need to watch it before you watch this, because I'm going to elaborate on some stuff I said in that video without actually mentioning it in this video. The first question is, so wouldn't it be better to gig frequently, but throughout a handful of cities rather than just one? Yeah, basically. We mentioned the idea of doing one gig per, say, half a year. So the idea is that anyone who wants to come and see you has to come and see you at that one gig, which therefore makes it more full, which makes you look better, which means that you can appear as though you sell tickets, which gets good opportunities. That will only happen within, like, a city. If a few cities away, there are also people who want to see you, there's a chance they won't travel all the way to the city that you're in to see you. So yeah, you could essentially do the same thing in a different city. It won't work as well because obviously you're not going to have as many people as you will in your hometown. But gigging in other cities is kind of excluded from the idea of doing this one big hometown show because it's a different situation. It's a completely different situation. So maybe you could do a thing where you go on first and just play to a few people in another city, but it might not do a great deal for you. Just doing those kind of gigs don't really do a great deal for a band anyway, so totally up to you, but I would recommend doing what we said for your hometown shows. In terms of other cities, that kind of thing, it's up to you, do whatever you want for your hometown show. We're just saying it's a pretty good way of selling it out, which creates better opportunities. To me, it makes more sense to play a bunch of gigs as you start out and build up a crowd. If you want to play for your friends and family, just throw a house party. I guess, but there's kind of two situations here that we can kind of compare. Very loud bug. The first situation is what we talked about last week, where you get a load of friends and family to a gig and in theory sell it out. There may be colleagues and friends of friends and that kind of thing that may come as well. That's great. They aren't really friends and family. They could actually be turned into proper super fans anyway. Then we've got your situation, which is essentially play a load of gigs and in theory build a fan base by playing a load of gigs. The only problem is that doing that second method that you propose doesn't normally work. There are a lot of bands, I can guarantee that almost every band that's kind of at the really low level, that's not getting anywhere, that's not doing anything, that's not got many opportunities, they are the bands that are gigging a lot. They are doing a lot of pub shows, they're doing a lot of small venue shows, they may be going on first, going on second, and they aren't building an audience. Yes, every single gig they get to play between 4 and 10 or 4 and 20 people, but the shows aren't all that great. The crowd isn't bouncing because there's only 4 people in the entire venue. The entire experience of the gig isn't all that great, so the show that you put on isn't as good, which means that the impression that you give isn't as good, which means that those 4 to 10 to 20 people that were watching aren't going to become fans. Repeat that 50 times a year, and you end up in that cycle that I kind of mentioned in the video, where you're doing a load of gigs because the idea is that every time you do a gig, people will start liking you, and then if every single gig you only get 4 fans, by the time that you've done 50 gigs, that's 200 fans. That's great, but it just doesn't work. I've seen it happen with many bands. We did it with our first band. It just doesn't work. Maybe if you are the best artist in the world, it's really hard to tell because obviously you're going to be biased towards your own music, but if you are the best artist in the world and you're all playing in front of 4 people, maybe it will work. Maybe those 4 people will instantly become super fans. It's just in the general kind of world and kind of how I've experienced it, it just doesn't work. So being able to do a sellout gig, especially if it's your debut show, that will give you opportunities. People in the industry may notice that. And if they do notice that, they will go, okay, they can sell tickets. I'm going to give them this opportunity because I need tickets sold for this thing that I'm doing. They put you on pretty high because the idea is that you can sell a load of tickets. Job done, you've just got yourself a nice support slot. Can't do that if you don't have that initial kind of buzz behind you. Yes, you have to follow it through. If we just do this initial sold out show and then just nothing happens, which could totally happen, then yeah, it wasn't the best idea in the world. But the idea is that you follow it up with the premise for opportunity. The final question for today is, if you're only selling tickets to friends and family, how do you get new fans from gigs? While I agree selling out a show is awesome and potentially very profitable, doing it this way doesn't offer much room for gaining fans. I think this is where opening for well-known bands is a good thing. Yes, but you try getting a really good support slot without solidifying yourself as someone who can sell tickets. That's really, really hard. Not only is it easiest to get a support slot when you're signed to a booking agent, because ideally the booking agent will also have bigger bands, so when that big band goes on tour, they just put a smaller band from the same agency on the tour. You don't get on a booking agency without being able to sell tickets. If you're doing kind of like, you're going to be the local support, so maybe in a tour where they've got the headliner for the tour, they've got the main support for the tour, and then they've got another support slot where every single place that they go to, they will get a local act. Getting on that is probably the simplest for a low-level band. Maybe they let the venue choose, or at least put in a good word for a few bands. Maybe they let promoters choose, and let them put in a good word for a few bands. They're only going to put in a good word for your band if you've done some good stuff for them. Venues only care about how much you filled the place and whether or not those people were enjoying themselves. Doing our thing with selling out to friends and family, we'll do that. Promoters, it's a bit harder because obviously to impress a promoter you need to work with them to then sell a load of tickets. But if you do our thing first, make it known that you can sell a load of tickets, and then you go to a promoter, or they come to you, which is even better, and they say, I want to work with you on a gig. Because you've established yourself as someone who can sell tickets, that promoter will put you on something pretty good in theory. If you then sell the same amount of tickets, provided it's not close to this show that you're going to sell out, provided it's a bit further down the line, you can then sell that amount of tickets again, and then that promoter thinks you're awesome because you've just made him a load of money. If a venue or a promoter is going to put in a good word for you, you kind of have to do something to impress them. Because it's their job, money is a great way of impressing people. Just being good generally isn't good enough to impress people. They want to be earning money from you. So sell tickets. Who's the easiest people to sell tickets to? Friends and family. Especially if you've already solidified yourself as someone who can sell out gigs. In these kind of comments and stuff, I totally get where you're coming from with this idea of, how are you ever going to get new fans? Because the idea is that you're going to fill a room with people who you already know. Totally get that mentality, but it's less about making your debut gig, or at least the first gig that you aim to sell out. It's less about making new fans and more about making you appear to be a fucking mint artist. If you can appear like a fucking mint artist, the opportunities that come along with that will grant you opportunities to make new fans. It's not the most ideal way of going about things. Ideally, you could just go out and just make new fans. It's not that easy. If anyone has ran social media for their band, especially like on Facebook and stuff, you try making new fans from Facebook, like just Facebook. That's super hard. There needs to be more, and this is a way of doing it. Hope that helps. I hope that it was a little bit more explanatory about the things that I maybe didn't cover all that well last week. Again, if you've not seen the video, link up there. You're probably confused at this point anyway, so you've probably already gone and watched it. That's cool. If you want to see more from this series, click on that side of the screen. I'm also going to link to the best of playlist that we have, which is over that side of the screen. Go watch the stuff, because if you want to be a band and you want to sell out gigs and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff in that playlist is stuff that will help you. I promise. Have a good week.
Bye!